You're listening to QCast, presented by Qcella Media. Please consider giving generously to Qcella's nonprofit mission. To find out more about our mission and to make a donation, visit our website at qcast.qcella.org. Your tax-deductible donation will help us continue bringing you quality podcasts just like this one.
I may be bruised, but I'm not broken. You can't take away my soul. You tried to tell me I don't count, but I know in my heart that's not true. So you cannot take me down that path. I'll make it without you. I may be bruised, but I'm not broken. My life counts for something, and you wake up and I'll be gone. You'll know that you were wrong.
Welcome to my show, Shades of Gender. I'm your host, Terry Ryan. Each show, we're going to be talking about gender identity, including transgender, cross-dressers, gender fluid, non-binary gender individuals, and all those who self-identify with these groups. The definition of these groups are often misused and certainly misunderstood. Our goal is to identify these groups, listen to their stories and their journeys in life to get a better understanding of who they are and how they're doing. So this is season 2 of Shades of Gender, and I'd love to welcome you all to the show, and I appreciate you staying with us and joining us in our journey on gender identity. I'm pleased to be your host, and I am forever thankful to be doing this and to talking to people that are in this gender identity community. So today I have a woman that I have met back, probably maybe 4 years ago. And her name is Rachel Rollins. Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
Hi. There you are. And Rachel is calling in from Wisconsin. And how is it there today?
Actually, for February, it's wonderful. It was quite warm today. Lovely weather. Great day in the Midwest to be outside.
Wonderful. Yeah. You know, I just left Chicago last, I guess I got here on Sunday, and it was beautiful. The sun didn't come out like for 10 days. So, but it finally came out. So I'm glad it got warm for you. So, Rachel, I've known you for a while, but obviously the audience doesn't know you, and this is a podcast, so we can't see you. So to frame who you are and get some idea before we get into kind of, who you are and what you're doing. And I need to ask you, how do you identify on the gender scale?
I identify as a pre-operative transsexual woman. I get accused oftentimes of being gender fluid, but that's someone else's identification of me. My self-identification is pre-operative transsexual, and
okay, so
at this point, yeah, that's it.
It's pre-operative transsexual woman, and you said that so people have tried to say that you're gender fluid because of your, going, I guess, back and forth between your male and your femme self, or?
Unfortunately, I don't fit into the modern transgender narrative, and I believe that living my truth involves making sacrifices. And although I would love to spend the rest of my life as a woman, I think I love my spouse more than I want to be a woman. So she can't be with a woman. She won't be with a woman, and so right now I'm in a gender fluid role where I spend most of my time presenting as male to keep marriage going, and that's my truth, and so I'm going to live it.
Right. You've been married now for what? I know you have a couple children in their 20s, right? That know about you. I guess I do. I haven't caught up on that. I know when you told a very touching story when you told your daughters about. I guess at the time, when you talked to your daughters, what did you tell them?
Well, I I sat them down one at a time, a few months apart actually, and I sat there stuttering and stammering, and I finally got out the words that I was transgender, and they both accepted it quite well and thought that everything seemed to make sense, and they gave me their support, and we have, I guess I raised them right, and I got the support. I have the support of my wife as well. It's just that she doesn't want to live with a woman, and I got to tell you, I love you, girl, because we've known each other for like 7 or 8 years, and so you just made me 4 years younger.
Has it been that long? Well,
sorry.
Yeah. All right. Well, I love you. I mean, I have to tell the audience a story. Truly, when I met Rachel back in 2013, wow, it is 7 or 8 years. And I went to a group. I was trying to cast my show for cross-dressers, and I went to a trias meeting, which was, I think, originally set up for cross-dressers that are a combination now of TGs and CDs and dual gender and however in between. But and the first person, they were kind enough to let me talk about what I wanted to do, which is a documentary on cross-dressers. And I got into the room, and there were 30 or 40 people there, and they weren't too happy to have me in their space. It really was a private group of cross-dressers and people that weren't, mostly not out. And I walk in, and there's Rachel, beautiful. You'll see her. Beautiful, high cheekbones, beautiful brown hair, big blue eyes, about 5'9", in heels, maybe, 5'11", dressed perfectly, and comes in and just looks at me and says, "Hi, I'm Rachel." And it was like, oh my gosh, you're so nice to me. And I'll never forget it. So I tell the story a lot, but brought me in and introduced me some of the girls, and it's a very coveted group, right? I mean, Trias is do you still go there?
Occasionally, every once in a while, I do. It's a long drive for me, and I've my support groups and I've made so many more friends since I've been out around closer to my home. So I just kind of hang out around the house unless I'm going to a convention or something to blog about an event or whatever.
Right, because this is far, to put it in perspective, this is in Oak Brook where the Trias meeting is, and Rachel is up in Verona, Wisconsin, which is about 2 hours north of the Illinois border.
I'm actually in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and it's not that far, but it's good 2.5 hours away from that meeting. Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty far because that's south. Yeah.
Long way for a girl. Long way for an older gal like me to be driving late at night.
You're not that much older. So I have. God, you make you sound like you're making us both sound old. Please. You still.
I know it's talking about your age yet.
Yeah, no one's gonna talk about my age. Fool them as long as I can. So you do make it to see. We have another common friend named Rory, who has her tea parties in outside of Chicago suburb in Arlington Heights. I still see you're part of that group, and Rory, for the audience, is someone who's been very involved in the transgender community and anyone who wants to really transform themselves with makeup and wigs. So she has cancer survivors and very interesting giving woman. Are you still involved with the tea parties? And I know I've seen you in pictures with Rory.
I've actually videotaped 6 different tutorials / infomercials from her store where we teach people about how to pick out a wig, and we give fashion advice, and we teach them how to apply eyelashes and.
Oh, good. So you've worked with her at the store, actually, vlogging, going through the tutorial. You have been, now we have known each other 7 years. So I want to back up here. Tell us a little bit about, when you say you're, when I met you, you weren't on hormones. The first thing I remember you saying about picking out your clothes, that you just go in and buy, you're not very good at it, so you go in and buy the whole outfit, which I thought was funny. So, two things. One, where have you progressed really in the past 7 years? I mean, I know you're still pretty coveted with your work because you're in the kind of business that, that is a male dominated type of role. And, you have to make a living. So, how is it, how has it changed for you, would you say, Rachel, in the past 7 years? I mean, I know you've come out more, but how do you balance all that in your life?
I don't think I can answer that. As part of my self-education of what it means to be transgender, I've spoken with a lot of professionals, and they've all explained to me my coping mechanisms that I've created in my life that I didn't realize were coping mechanisms. And it's a complicated thing. I always knew there was something going on, but I didn't want to admit it. And I jokingly say that I'm probably the most transphobic person I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried not to be transgender my entire life, and I basically got to the point where I had to do something because the anxiety was so great, and just the I didn't need. It's not like I needed medication for any of it, or I had like clinical depression, but I couldn't focus on things, and I was really in love with presenting myself to the world as a woman. And I discussed it with my wife, and I went and I got counseled to see if I could get on hormones. I just knew that hormonal therapy would be good for me, and I didn't do it to change my body because I'm middle-aged and I've been through puberty, and hormones aren't going to change your body that much. I did it because I knew it would change my brain, and it did, and it made me a lot happier, and it's made me a lot more confident. It's amazing how much more confidence I have in decision making.
Mm-hmm.
And things that used to frighten me and intimidate me, now I just look at it and go, you know what, I think I could do that. And I don't know where that confidence came from, but I think finally my brain is just working right.
Yeah,
you know
so
what
you
I mean?
feel it's almost
that's a good explanation.
No, but you feel like it's a deficiency. You feel like your hormone, it was a hormone deficiency. I mean, are you seeing them? What do they call those doctors that work with hormones and?
I'm actually not seeing an endocrinologist.
Right.
I'm actually not seeing an endocrinologist.
Mm-hmm.
I am seeing a family physician who has treated transgender women in the Chicago-Atlanta area for over 20 years, and he's treated hundreds of them. And he's married to a prominent transgender therapist, and they actually have a fellowship in the University of Minnesota for PhDs who want to learn how to treat transgender people. He's probably one of the most knowledgeable transgender doctors in the country.
How lucky
and
you are.
He's yes,
Yeah,
and he's a great guy, but he is not an endocrinologist. And you do not. This is a big fallacy. You do not need an endocrinologist to prescribe you hormones if your doctor does have a thorough understanding of the transgender experience and is confident to diagnose someone that may have gender identity disorder, or what they call now gender dysphoria. They changed the name of it because it was stigmatized. So they changed the name to gender dysphoria. And if he can recognize that, he can prescribe you hormonal therapy. And then you just take it from there. And if hormonal therapy makes you feel bad, makes you feel worse, or makes you feel funny, then you just stop.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to kill you.
Yeah, it's a very powerful. Hormones, of course, are very powerful. I mean, take any birth control pills, and I used to get sick on them when I was in my 20s. So, but I will say that the hormone therapy is something that hormones are tricky in the sense of how much, right? I mean, that to me is the monitoring. Since we're on this topic, and I haven't really talked about this on the show, on the hormone therapy, did he start you at a baseline? I mean, how do you know what baseline to go on? Or does he have a baseline they start you on and backs you off? Or, how does that all work?
Well, we didn't discuss his baseline in depth. He had a baseline that he could safely start people. It's all about how your metabolism, your body weight. He does blood work
right
ahead of time. They do blood work ahead of time to see where you're at. And I told him, I said, you know what? I don't want to do any heavy stuff. Just start me out with the lightest possible dose, and we'll just take it from there. This is essentially an experiment. And I mean, he believes I'm transgender, and I believe I am too. And I have all the signs and feelings. But he, and he said, fine, okay, great. We'll just give you a little dose here in this patch that you put on your skin, and we'll see where it goes. He started me out first with testosterone blockers to get my testosterone levels down. My testosterone levels were normal for a middle-aged male, a middle-aged healthy male. They were in the normal range, and we had to get them down. You want to get them down ideally to 50 or less, and my number was 450 when we started.
Wow.
So we started out with an average dose of testosterone blocker, which was basically a hypertension drug that they found out the side effect of that was that it had some feminization characteristics. So they used it in transgender women. So we started out with that, and once my testosterone level had gotten down to around 200, he put me on this estrogen patch. And it didn't really lower my testosterone, so he increased my testosterone blocker dosage. Well, I was afraid, of course, and I didn't want to go with too much estrogen, so I went to a little bit larger patch, a little bit larger dose of a patch, and none of these things were really getting my testosterone down. And he didn't like the fact that I was on so much testosterone blocker. He didn't want me on that for any length of time. So he says, the only thing we can do here is for you to go on estrogen injections, which is going to be a stronger dose of estrogen, and that's going to help keep your testosterone down, and we can get you off of all these testosterone blockers to where you're down to like a normal, healthy dose of testosterone blockers. And I said, all right, let's do it. And, up to that point, my emotions had just been on a roller coaster. And when we hit those injections, and we got the testosterone blockers right, at that point, I'd become severely depressed, situationally depressed, and I didn't know what was going to happen, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was almost suicidal, and I was seeing a therapist, and about a month and a half into the injections, something just kind of flipped in my head, and I realized I needed to start helping people and get out of myself more and do more things, and that made me feel better. But then everything else just seemed to fall into place. And when I went back 2 months later to get my hormone levels checked, the doctor smiled at me and said, your testosterone is 5 and your estrogen is 160. You are right where a middle-aged trans woman should be. And I smiled and I thought, well, we should have probably done this right off the bat then, shouldn't we?
Yeah, yeah.
So
well,
it was strange, but yeah, it was a roller coaster ride of emotions just trying to get.
Well, that's what hormones
right.
do. But I mean, hormones are notorious for that. I mean, they really do, and that's why I wanted to spend a little time on it because they're not to be taken lightly. And going to a professional who's experienced in this area is so important. I mean, I want to say that for our audience who are starting, because so many people that are starting as trans women, they start with the electrolysis and then they go into the hormones. And, they look at that as, oh, yeah, I'm just taking hormones. Well, just taking hormones is major, right? I mean,
know what I mean? I did a video on what I just told you and how it has changed my body to a certain degree. But, yeah, they can be life-shortening. If you do it wrong, it could be life-shortening.
Right.
And I've got a lot of comments from the video. What the heck does that mean? If you don't monitor your blood and you don't keep these hormone levels at the levels they're supposed to be at, you could die. You could have a blood clot. If you smoke,
right.
your chance of blood clot goes way up. So you could stroke. There's a lot of things you could do, and you got to do it right. You got to do it with a doctor. And I know a lot of people can't afford doctors, and a lot of people just can't wait to get on hormones. But if when we talk about I got to be a woman or I'm going to die, well, if you don't do hormones right, you're going to die. So.
Well, that's right. And that's I so appreciate you saying that. And that's so refreshing to hear because I have known, I have a friend who was doing hormones and she was over at the house, and she said, "Oh, I'll take out your trash," and she'd be gone for like 30 minutes, and it's because she was getting so sick on the lack of the balance of the hormones. And I said, "Why are you doing? Why? I understand." Your need to transition, but you're not getting that good advice on this. You shouldn't be getting this sick. I mean, it was like constant. It was like being pregnant or something and getting morning sickness. And it's bad on your bones if you don't do it right. It's just a number of things. Now you mentioned your journey on this. Why don't you at this point too, Rachel? Where would they find this? Not only this particular show, but where on your vlogger, what's your the address on that for our audience?
Well, I have a YouTube channel.
Okay.
And if you were to go to YouTube and you wanted to listen to me or see me, you would type in to the search bar on YouTube, Rachel Rollins Trans Life.
Okay.
And hopefully you'll be able to show how to spell my name, or I can spell it for you. But
yeah, it's
I also have an.
Go ahead. So it's Rachel Rollins, Rachel Rachel, and then Rollins Rollins, Trans Life, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I also have an Instagram presence, and on Instagram I am Rachel Erin, Erin Rollins. So first and last names spelled the same way as on my channel, and I just have my middle name in there. So it's Rachel Erin Rollins. On Instagram. On
Instagram. So that's Rachel Erin Rollins. So, Rachel, you really have given back to the community since when I first met you. I mean, when I first met you, it was your own journey, and you've come, you've always been self-evaluating. I mean, ever since I had a conversation with you, I know you've gone to therapists. I mean, you're trying to, you've put a lot into yourself and trying to figure out who you are and where you fit in. And you've done the heavy lifting, as they would say, to try to become your authentic self and continue on your journey. So, but you've also given back. And I know you do have a lot of film and videos. And when did you start into this? A couple of years ago, when you started vlogging and YouTube?
I've been vlogging 3 years, and I just posted my 103rd video, I think.
Wow.
And I'm going to be doing another one tomorrow that'll be posting probably tomorrow night. But when I just went to First Event, which is a large transgender convention.
Yeah, tell us about that. That was on the East Coast, right?
In Boston, yeah.
Yeah, Boston. So tell us about that event.
It was just a good time. There was 1,450 attendees. There were a lot of workshops, that's what I like about the conferences. I being transphobic as I am, I went to a conference 30 years ago to try and see if I could relate to the other trans people there, and I didn't go to another conference until last year, so I just had a hard time.
I see what you're saying.
with being transgender. So I went to a conference last year and I had a lot of fun, and I decided I'd start vlogging about the conferences. So I vlogged about the one I was at last year in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which is called Keystone, and there's several videos about that there. But they're basically infomercials promoting the conference. And if I like what I see, I give good reviews, and if I don't, I tell it like it is. First Event was great. They have a fashion show that you can participate in. They have a large-scale banquet where they have keynote speakers that are oftentimes quite well-known. A couple of the most well-known people they had there this year were Carmen Carrera, who was an advocate, and she used to be a drag queen. Now she's an actress and a model. Beautiful, beautiful young lady. And then we had Samantha Lux, which is a fellow YouTuber whose league I am not in. She has about 211 subscribers, and 211,000 subscribers, and she's just a cute little girl, and she's like 24 years old, transgender girl.
Yes. Well,
awesome.
they know how to build audiences fast. So, they're 24. I mean, they're so good at it. Yeah. It's a great, skinny little bitch. But anyway, I know. That's what I say, too. That's what happens when you're over 50. They're all little bitches to us. But
she was great. I mean, very gracious. We got some photos. She boosted my Instagram followers when I posted photos.
She helped you. That was nice of her. Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. They know how to build it.
Anyway, I'll be going back to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania at the end of March for that Keystone again, and I'll be blogging about that. I also did a seminar. I also spoke myself to a group about how to stay safe, handle yourself walking around on the street, and keep yourself safe. And the room was filled. I filled the room. I couldn't believe it.
Oh,
so,
congratulations on that. Well, you have a lot to say. I mean, I as I say, I think you have such for the audience when they see the videos and the Instagram, but the videos, you'll see how Rachel just talks to you like you're sitting right next to her. You're so honest about what's going on, and you just don't hold back. So it's very authentic, I think, as you are. I have a question on, when you're going to these events, what are you seeing in terms of the trans and are you seeing gender fluid, cross-dressers? I mean, what is the terminology out here, and who's attending these conferences? I mean, how's it changing, do you think?
I think the conferences are a great cross-section of an example of the transgender community. Transgender being an umbrella term,
right,
that covers any kind of cross-gender behavior, and the vast majority of the transgender community are simply, and I don't mean to degrade them at all by saying simply, and I'll explain that in a sec. Mm-hmm. They're simply cross-dressers.
Right.
And when I say simply cross-dressers, I mean they're males who identify as male. They like being male, and but they also enjoy dressing up in women's clothes and presenting themselves in public as women, and they get a rush from it, and it's exciting for them, and there's nothing wrong with that. And when I said simply, what I mean by that is being someone who is transsexual or who wants to be a woman, who identifies with the female gender, and it's a lot more complicated upstairs in the brain than it is for someone that knows and understands they're simply a cross-dresser, and then they just like to look good. There's just a little more to it. And I have a lot of friends that are cross-dressers. I don't judge and I don't differentiate between, I go with the person's personality. I don't really care how they identify.
Yeah, when you're out, you're all girls. I mean, something I've learned in dealing in this space. I mean, I've had when I went out with one of my guests and her two friends, and one was post-op and transgender woman, and the other was pre-op. It was a transgender woman. The other one was, I would say, probably more of a cross-dresser. But we're all together as girls, and we're having a great time. So I do think that, this is why the show's here. It's shades of gender, right? I mean, and everyone has their own journey to it. So.
And you're right. You're absolutely right. And there were a lot of nice people that there were a percentage of people there that were just considered themselves to be non-binary, and they might have been men. They might have appeared to be men, presenting them as men, but saying that, they go back and forth. They don't subscribe to any one gender.
Ah, that's there too. Interesting. Yeah, non-binary. Not even dressed.
The conferences will generally welcome anyone on the gender spectrum.
Right.
They're transgender conferences, so anyone on the spectrum. But most of the people there were a lot of trans men there as well. I met some really cool, really great trans men. I felt so good because when we had one of the lunches where they had a speaker, I sat down next to a trans male, and then the whole table filled up with trans men. And I said, "This is so cool! I'm the only girl here. It's awesome." And they got a kick out of that. And
you probably love that.
Well, yeah.
Are you kidding? That's a lot of fun. I mean, it really is. So, how many people do you think are at these conferences? I mean, what's a good crowd for them? Like 300 or 2,000 or?
Well, there were 1,450 people at that one, and that one's probably one of the largest conferences in the country, if not the largest. There will probably be between 800 and 900 at the next one in March in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. There's another big one in the fall in New Hampshire, I think it is, that will probably have close to 500 or 600. Mm-hmm. So there are some big ones. There's another one there's another one up by Seattle, Washington, that I guess they brag about.
Is that the Emerald Club?
1,000.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
So, yeah.
I was invited to that.
Yeah.
I have one of the girls I met who's, I don't know where she is now, but Alyssa is, they have a wonderful group called the Emerald Club, and they have an event. Yes, I think it's on the island. I was invited to it some years back, and I'd really love to go to that one, too. So you have to, maybe I'll join you one time. That'd be fun. We could go do that.
They got a
Sparkle
really nice
or
website.
Something. Yeah. I think it's called...
No, Sparkle is in, I think Sparkle is in the United Kingdom.
Oh, is it in the United? Okay. Boy, I can't think of the name.
If you want to go there, you're going to have to pay for my plane ticket.
No, I'm not paying for your plane ticket.
Go with it.
You're so bad. I love you. All right, so one last question here. So first, I want the public to know that this is a person. Are you still like? Well, I know you're not karate, but
I'm a self-defense instructor, and I teach people in safe use of firearms, and so I do some tactical training and gunfighting and things like that I teach people.
I'd love to come up. Maybe this summer I will drive up. And I forgot you're more like Lake Geneva. I can drive up there. I'd love to do shooting package. So last time I did that was in Tennessee with a black belt in karate, surrounded by deliverance type people with a .22 caliber, and they were all looking at us through the bushes. And he said, "Now put the gun down very, very slowly, and you're going to hold on to me. You're going to run like hell."
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty scary.
That sounds like fun. I don't want to do that. No, we don't have. You'll be a lot safer here.
Yeah,
You'll be a lot safer here.
That's what I'm looking forward to. Anyway, all right. Well, listen. Till next time, I'm going to have you back on. All right. Will you come back on my show?
I would love to come back on.
Right. I love you, and I hope to see you when I'm back in Chicago. And will you give us your email, or not your email, your vlog space again on YouTube?
Rachel Rollins Trans Life.
Okay. And then under your Instagram, it's Rachel Erin, Erin Rollins. So check her out.
Correct.
And I'm going to close out and thank you for being on the show. And everyone out there, thank you so much for listening. I want to thank Coachella Media and KGay for allowing me to broadcast from the show. And I really, really look forward to continuing the conversation on gender identity. And thank you again for joining me. Goodbye.